Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. Now joined by Mr. William Brad Alice. I am Mike Luke. Hello, William.
Hello, Michael.
All right, let's get started here. We're going to talk a little Arizona football, then we're going to get to some Arizona basketball because there's a lot of good stuff going on. Arizona wins the Territorial Cup. As our guy back the A-Ray says, the cup is home. This to me was, well, let's talk about the game first. What were your impressions of the game?
In reality, I think Arizona was fortunate to win. I thought ASU, at least offensively, outplayed them. Arizona, though, forced, 5 turnovers, spoiling the homecoming for Trenton Bourget, a guy I have
played fantastic, by the way.
He did. And I've known the kid since he was 5 years old, playing flag football out at Orame Harn Park in Marana. So it was fun to see him succeed, but not wearing those colors. And Arizona did enough on offense. Jaden DeLora was good when he had to be, but really it was the Michael Wiley show, and he was spectacular. He probably, along with Jacob Manu, will now go on to that. I don't know what you would call it. It's not a Mount Rushmore, but the Wall of Fame for rivalry games, along with guys like Dan.
They're hanging out with Chuck
Cecil. Some of those, James DeBow. We can't leave James DeBow out with that goal line stand. So, pretty special moment for those guys. And again, 5 wins for whatever reason looks a heck of a lot better than 4 wins. And in the end, there's still a lot of work to go in this program. I think Jedd Fisch did a nice job this year, but I'm not 100% sold on him being a guy who's going to make this anything more than a 500 program. I'm not saying he's not either. This is just, it's an incomplete grade. You are really doing a complete overhaul of a program from the ground floor up. And even though he did a okay job year one, did a good job this year, there's still room to go. And we're going to see that because, what's the over and under on transfers out of the program and how big this year's class is going to be now that you can sign more than 25 now with the slight tweaks in the transfer process. We already saw Drake Anderson, who was a good player, played really well last year. Now it's a numbers game. Now he's the number 5 or 6 running back. There's going to be more guys like that, guys who could play at Arizona, but not at an Arizona team that's an 8-win team, a 7-win team, and he'll be the first of several casualties. What you're hoping is you don't see any of the guys who should be playing on a 7 or 8-win Arizona team leave as well. And I don't think you'll see that. But yeah, you're going to see some names and names we like leaving the program because there's just not going to be the opportunities there. And that's not an indictment on anyone other than the success of recruiting under Jedd Fisch.
And that's what I was going to get to. I mean, that's it's unfortunate, but that's also a good thing in the grand scheme of things because, again, when Arizona came in here, when Jedd Fisch came in here, you're in the midst of a 12-game losing streak. It hit 20. You getting 5 wins in year 2. If you were to tell me that before the season, I would have taken that every single day of the week. That's improvement. Now, to me, you look at the schedule next year, it's about getting to that 7 or 8 win realm because the schedule is much easier than it was. You bring back a ton of players. Granted, they're going to hit the portal incredibly hard, but this to me was the year that they needed. Now, again, like you said, there's certainly things that they need to figure out. Defensively, just giving up 12 yards on an open zone every single time is not going to work. And they've got to figure out the goal line or the short yardage offense because that's pitiful. But overall, pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incomplete project. You inherit a team that was in the midst of an 8 and 10 or 11 game losing streak. It ended up being nearly 20. And for as good as I thought he did last year, there's still some asterisks around that 1 win. But this year, your wins were legit. If you look back, the game you want back is Cal.
Right.
Other than, unfortunately, Washington State just better than Arizona. It was a pathetic performance, but they're just better. They should have been better than Arizona. So you're right about where you really hoped they'd be. I said if they could go into the Washington State game with an outside chance at a bowl, that was a successful season, and they were there. They didn't get to the bowl, which I thought would have been the cherry on top. But despite, some people say there are no moral victories. Well, Yes, this is Arizona. This is not Arizona basketball, where
Right.
if Tommy
Right.
Lloyd had come in and not made the tournament last year, it would have been disappointment.
Right.
No one saw 1 seed coming, obviously. Well, you and I thought he might be a top 3 seed, but
Right.
toot our own horns. But
we're going to give ourselves a little bit of credit here, Brad.
But this is more like building a business. And if I said in year 1, you were going to lose money, in year 2, you're going to break even, no one's going to be like, you're a terrible businessman. You broke even in year 2. No, that's how businesses are built. That's how programs are built. They've got a long way to go. That it's not a good enough defense. The offense is good enough to win 7 or 8 football games a year. And if that's what you can be at Arizona, I hate to, the odds of anyone coming to Arizona this side of Urban Meyer and making Arizona a 10-win program is remote. But if Jedd Fisch can average 7.5, 8 wins a year, that's an A+ hire.
Right. All right. Now we're going to get to some Arizona hoops here in a second, but 2 things. Got to pay the bills. Oh, geez. All right. They've renewed their contract with PHNX. Here's the deal. You've got all kinds of good gummies. You've got indicas. You've got sativas. They're different colors, different flavors. You name it. I went up there. You can get them at your local dispensary. You got to be 21 and up to enjoy. William, what were you going to say right there?
I was just laughing at your colors.
Oh, I was going to say,
a lot of ways I could have gone there.
You can get them in different colors. So again, we're going to stick with that run right there. But again, check it out. OGs. Love to have them here with PHNX. And again, you can get them at your local dispensaries. And Four Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. Now, again, many people think the Four Peaks are the 4 U of A big men. They're right. But you know what? The original Four Peaks is the brewery based out of Tempe. They've got watch parties up there. You can go up there. You can root against ASU. Or you can get your Four Peaks down here at the Tap and Bottle watch parties. So, again, check it out. Check out the show link in the description. 21 and up. Got to enjoy. But, again, check it out. All kinds of good stuff going on there at Four Peaks down at Tempe especially. Arizona.
We could also dub Cowing, Singer, and the like as the Four Peaks, right? The 4 big receivers. So, a lot of Four Peaks in Arizona.
Okay,
not just confined to Tempe.
I was going to say the Four Peaks expands all horizons right here, William. So that was good. I like that.
Branding. Thank you. I'm working.
Right.
Got to help Saul there.
You know what you're doing, right? All right. Now let's talk a little bit of Arizona hoops. So Arizona is now number 4 in the nation. We had Doug Gottlieb on yesterday, and he said, it feels about right. They look like about a top 5 team right now. Just from what you've watched in college basketball so far this year, what do you think about what you're seeing so far?
And I think Arizona holds up with anyone right now. And obviously, There's a lot of room to go. There are teams taking their lumps now that are going to be really good in January. There are teams looking really good now who are not going to progress. I don't think Arizona's that team. I think Arizona's a pretty darn good basketball team. If they can continue to get 2/3 the production they're getting out of Umar Ballo right now, they're going to be really tough matchup. Because, I think Tabellis has been as advertised. Ramey has been a little bit better than advertised. I'll tell you, the guy who's really turned my head is Henderson.
Right.
Henderson's everything you could hope for from a guy who averaged that at Campbell, but is actually living up to it. And I tempered my expectations just because of what we've seen in the past and what he has been able to do. And it looks like he's going to give Arizona some great versatility. You want to go small, put him at the 4. You want to go big, you can slide him to the 2. I didn't know he could play the 2, but he can play the 2.
Right.
You throw that in with Boswell giving you solid minutes, just Kerr Kriisa playing under control. His stroke looks improved. Again, there's a long way to go. Larson, and that's the thing. Larson has not been good.
Right.
In Maui, he was not good. It was too far from home, I guess. Too far from stream. Right. It's about the opposite end of the map.
You think
if you can get him to even play last year's level, that's Arizona going up another notch.
Let's talk Larson here for a second, because Larson to me is fascinating because all of his, again, he was good last year. My bad, Pella. I mean, I thought Pella sucked. So again, take for what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But people were projecting out a guy that averaged 6 points a game last year and turned the ball over at a pretty high rate to being an all-conference guy, to being, maybe the best player on the team. I think the one thing that Maui showed us, Brad, is that Umar Ballo, Azuolas Tubelis, and Courtney Ramey are clearly at this stage better players than Pella Larson.
Yeah, and the only one of that group that really surprises me is Ballo.
Right.
And I thought Bella would be better, getting more minutes. Again, I think in many ways, Henderson is what I kind of hoped Pella is. And that might be part of the problem. Pella's trying to find his role. And, with Henderson being, at least at this time, he looks to be a better defender.
Yeah.
It almost looks like Pella's a little lost. Do I shoot? Do I pass?
Like what his role is.
Exactly. And again, I'm not concerned about them figuring that out. They're still tinkering with things. The other guy who's been a little bit of a disappointment, not much, is Adama Ball. I just thought he might take up a little bit bigger role. But again, I think Henderson's stolen a lot of that. Right. And that's not what I really thought when it cleared that Henderson would probably be the 8th guy in the rotation. And right now he's kind of the 6th man.
Right, for sure. Now, let's talk a little bit now about the Oumar Ballo. I've always thought that AJ Bramlett was the big man that I saw improve the most from when they got there to win. Basically, by the end of his sophomore year, he leads the NCAA in rebounding. Quite frankly, I didn't think AJ was going to be that good. Again, I was younger, but I didn't think he was going to be that good. Oumar Ballo is on a different plane entirely. Oumar Ballo comes in here last year, and again, I thought that he would probably be a Gene Edgerson type, be physical, throw some elbows, get some fouls. He was obviously a contributor. This year, he looks like an All-American, Brad. He looks like a Kofi Coburn type.
Yeah, he really does, and that's a lot of what I think people saw out of him. Remember, he's a 5-star guy in high school, baby Shaq, and he came in last year and was strong, but now he's more fit. It's finding that balance. So, a lot of these guys bulk up so much, and he was already a big, strong kid. And then it takes a professional strength and conditioning guy. There's a conditioning in strength and conditioning. It's real easy to lift weights and get up to 290, but it's another skill to find that nice balance between athleticism and strength. And that's what he seems to have found. He's moving a little bit better, and he moved well last year for a guy his size. To me, your Bramlett call, again, totally different players, but the other guy who made a jump and was Jordan Hill. Those are probably the two
great point.
Best guys. What Ballo kind of reminds me of is, remember when Isaiah Fox came in? He was the starter as a freshman.
I knew where you're going with this, right? Yeah.
And he just would always lose his job in January. My always joke was Channing Frye must have had a bunch of tough finals in December, and it was when he cleared his head.
Right.
Until he became Channing Frye. The first 2 years, he was never the starter until January or late December. In many ways, Ballo, who's more talented than Isaiah Fox, apologies, Isaiah Fox, is what you hoped Isaiah Fox would become. And that's a guy who continued to get bigger and stronger and more athletic. And Fox had some injury issues. And frankly, just, his dad was an O-lineman, and he kept some of that O-lineman weight. But Ballo is kind of following through on that. And really, if he doesn't improve a lick the rest of his Arizona career, he's become a very good player. And the sad thing may be that if this was 10 years ago, he might.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And I think there's a role for him in the NBA just because he is so big and so strong and athletic enough that someone's going to at least want him on their bench to rebound and just be a big human being who can take up space.
Look at it this way. Mark West and Joe Klein played like 15 years apiece in the NBA.
Sean Brooks.
Guy, right? Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is. So we'll get to that in just a second here, but two things. Tap and bottle. William Brad Allis has been down there many times to the tap and bottle watch parties. We're going to be getting those back up here this month or next month, December. We're not in December yet. Come check it out. Scott and Rebecca do a great job down there. Big screen TVs. Join U of A fans where we can yell. We can back the A together. And Four Peaks is also down there as well, as is some pizza. But again, check it out. The tap and bottle watch parties. Also, Game Time. Here's the deal. If Game Time, if you know any procrastinators out there, let's just say that William Brad Allis was a procrastinator. And
we can confirm.
Let's just say that Tyler Allis, his precocious son, came up to him and said, "Dad, I want to go to this game." And Brad says, "Well, I don't know where to really get tickets. Sorry, Tyler, we can't go." Brad no longer has an excuse. That's where Game Time comes in. get on Game Time, and you can get your tickets many times 60% off. Check it out. Buy them through the link in the description. That helps us out. We've had people on the post-game shows talk about how they got it through Game Time. So, again, check it out. Game Time, that's where you can get the really good deals. Again, tab and bottle as well. All right, now let's get to Henry Vasar. Chef Duarte, great name, by the way, needs to eat while Ballo's been eating. I didn't like Vasar at first. Oh, I mean, I don't want to say that. I always thought he would be good, but you can see what Lloyd sees in him. First of all, he's incredibly long. He looks like he's got about a 7'9" wingspan. He's going to be able to guard. He's going to be able to guard just by the length, by the nature of his size. He's going to be able to block shots and be an impactful guy this year. And probably in year 2, you look for him to make a more of a move offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was ever really brought in for this year, except to give you depth on the inside. And if it and Vasar is a little bit more advanced, I think, than Dylan Anderson, who again would have played that role if you need it. But in reality, you're trying to get 12 quality minutes out of him, and then again, maybe by January he starts to figure it out, because he is athletic. He is fairly smooth. He's just underweight, and he's an 18-year-old kid getting used to playing not only American basketball but living in America.
Right.
And that is Tabella's had that transition. A lot of these guys have had that transition. I mean, think about when you were 18 going to the U of A the first time, just trying to balance classes and at least these guys, have a bigger support staff than I did. At least I don't know about Mike Luke, but
right.
The fact of the matter is, yeah, he's a little bit less than I had hoped, but if you're really counting on Henry Vasar to be a stud player for you,
right.
That's not the team you're thinking this is. Again,
we're not ASU here.
Ballo's playing better than I thought he would, and again, if you can get 13 and 8 out of him, that's great. And he was 19 a game up there,
right,
in Maui, and he'll have his nights where he doesn't score, and Vasar will, but for the most part, this is the Ballo and Tabella show inside, and the other two guys are depth in case there are foul troubles or tweaked ankles or, again, I think in reality, if you have a bad matchup and Ballo can't guard a 6'7" athletic forward, you're going to put Henderson on him. You're going to even put Larson or Ball on him. Vasar's 12, 13 minutes a game to get you quality, serviceable minutes.
My only concern with this team is how they deal with pressure. And what I mean by that is a team like Houston. It's weird using Houston as kind of that team right there. But how does Arizona match up with Houston? Because Houston's going to be able to get up on you in the backcourt. It's going to be a little bit of kind of that San Diego State type thing. How does Kerr, how does Courtney Ramey, how do they respond to that? Because other than that, I think that Arizona is going to be a real problem for basically any team in the, any team that plays any other style. I do worry a little bit about the up-tempo type teams.
I think it's the up-tempo physical teams.
Yeah.
And you mentioned San Diego State. You mentioned, and again, Houston's a matchup nightmare for most teams in America. That's what,
because they're probably the best team in the country.
And if not, they're just a really nasty matchup. As Baylor has been traditionally, but the other thing is they have to match up with Arizona's front line. And I really think that's a huge reason why they went after Ramey. Ramey is physical enough. I also think don't count out, again, it's going to be more mental than physical, but Boswell's a big, thick, strong kid. For a 17-year-old kid, right. He looks like a grown man out there. Right. So again, is that a matchup problem? Yeah, you don't want to see Houston until the Final Four or the Elite Eight. But again, there are a lot of teams who are going to be like, what are we going to do? I mean, Creighton's really good.
Yeah, and that's a good win. That's going to be one of those wins too.
Guess what?
They
couldn't handle Arizona's front line though, and they have a big, tall, talented kid. That kid's talented, but Omar Ballo is 30 pounds heavier and moves almost, if not better. So there are always going to be bad matchups. That's college basketball.
Right.
And Arizona's 9 times out of 10, 8 out of 10 times, Arizona's going to be the worst matchup for most teams in the country. And when you get to a Houston, you get to a Baylor, then that's up to Tommy Lloyd to out scheme them, and to figure out solutions. And You know, again, you hope you do not run into one of those teams early. You hope you're not a 4 and Houston's the 1 in your region. I mean, that's just what you play. That's why you play for a higher seed, because when you do face a physical, athletic team who's an 8 seed, they usually don't have shooters, or they lack a true point guard or something. But again, Houston's special. Baylor's usually special. Purdue looks like they might be special. But again, is Purdue's 7'3" big man going to be able to chase Bala? I don't know.
I love that dude, by the way. Real quick, because
he's fun, but yeah.
Right. Real quick, because I know you're up against the clock right here. Have I told you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX? Have I told you about this?
Luckily, you have.
All right, but I haven't told you today, and I didn't tell you yesterday either. So it's such an important thing. New customers can bet $5 on any NBA game money line and get $200 if their team wins. You can also boost your winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. It's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Again, code word PHNX. Code word PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions do apply. See the show notes for details. If you wanted to bet on Arizona on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, you might want to take the over on those games because they're going to get going. They're going to be running the ball up and down the court. So again, all right, Brad, before we sign off here, I wanted to ask you about the overall strength of where this athletic program is right now, because I look at it and I think to myself, basketball is obviously in a great position right now with Tommy Lloyd. Football, certainly, again, your concerns about Jedd Fisch are well-founded, or at least not, how it plays out. Arizona women's basketball is at an all-time high right now. This athletic department right now, I think, is probably in about the best shape it's been health-wise since maybe the 90s.
The two questions are the diamond.
Right.
Can Chip Hale, and I thought Hale did a pretty good job last year.
Right.
And can, Caitlin Lowe, and that's the problem. Anything less than Candrea is a disappointment.
Right.
And that's like saying anything less than Wooden or Summit or, those are a disappointment. She has impossibly high standards. She had a mediocre season and still made it to a College World Series, and we're still like, I don't know about Caitlin Love.
It's like meh. You're right.
But if they can be good, then the real last question is those transitions. When Dave Rubio steps aside, how can you elevate the program? If a golf coach leaves, because even those programs have been pretty special the last few years. But yeah, it's in a really good shape, and if you can continue to build women's basketball, if you can have a last couple years runs with Rubio. And Rubio's not an older guy, but he's been here 20-something years. And get back in those Director Cup standings. That's what you're looking for, because Arizona is not where they were in the 80s and 90s, but maybe it might be impossible to do that again too.
Right. He's Brad Allis. I am Mike Luke. As always, thank you everybody for hopping on. This will be posted on Twitter shortly. Emma behind the scenes making this all work. Without Emma, none of this happens. So again, for Brad Allis, I'm Mike Luke. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.